Good evening. Welcome gallery, staff, viewers online and councillors to Richmond Valley Council's ordinary meeting, Tuesday the 21st of April 2026. I'll open the meeting with the acknowledgement of country. Richmond Valley Council recognise the people of the Bundjalung Nations as custodians and traditional owners of this land, and we value and appreciate the continuing culture, connection to lands, their living culture and their unique role in the life of this region in the past, present and future. Mr General Manager, could you read the prayer, please?
Dear Lord, we meet to serve our Richmond Valley community, to use our resources wisely and well, to represent all members of our community fairly, and to make decisions that promote the common good. We recognise our responsibility to the past and the future, and the rights and needs of both individuals and community. As trusted servants, we seek blessings on our deliberations and on our efforts here today. May we act wisely and well. Amen.
Amen. Item 3 on the agenda is apologies, and I believe you have an apology, Mr General Manager, from Councillor Cornish.
Yes, I've received an apology from Councillor Cornish for unplanned family carer commitments.
Thank you. Could I get a mover for that, please?
Moved, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Morrissey, and a seconder?
I'll second that.
Councillor Murray. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Thank you. Item 4, mayoral minute. There's no mayoral minute. Item 5 on page 6, confirmation of the minutes. Can I get a mover, please?
Move that way.
Yeah, I'll second.
Councillor Humphries. Councillor Hayes seconding. Is everyone okay with the accuracy of those minutes? Put that motion in. All those in favour? Carried. Matters arising out of the minutes. Has any councillor got any matters arising?
Yeah, just a question on 14.1 on page 11 of the attachments. We had any movement with the investigation in the Crown land on Air Force Beach?
We are still chasing, well, we've had discussions with them, but we're still awaiting a formal response to them on that matter. And we're also obviously still pursuing securing the licence over the proposed car park works. So neither of those matters have been, unfortunately, finalised or decisions made so that we can move forward.
Thank you. Any other matters? Move on then. Declarations of interest, item 7. Is there any declarations of interest from councillors? Have you received any, Mr General Manager?
Yes, I have. So I've received one from Councillor Hayes. It's in the matter of item 14.2, which is the height variation approval matter. Councillor Hayes identified he's an applicant for the DA, so it's not pecuniary, but there is a significant conflict as the applicant, and he will leave the room for that item.
Thank you. Notice of motions. There is no notice of motion. Go over the page to page 8. Mayor's report. I'll move that. Can I get a seconder, please?
I'll second, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Morrissey. Any questions on those attendances? Councillors, I'd just like to speak on one. It's on the 21st of March, and it's I attended a former councillor of Richmond Valley, Norma Wise's memorial service, and her granddaughter gave a really lovely eulogy, and I asked her to send it to me, and I've just picked out one paragraph I think that's worth reading so we remember what Norma done for her community. She lived in Coracai, and the reading goes a part of it. She herself spent time as a councillor with what was Richmond Valley Council at the time, proudly speaking on behalf of her constituents and continually fighting for funding to make her communities a better place. If there was a committee, she was part of it. The Hospital Auxiliary, delivering Meals on Wheels, driving hundreds of trips for community transport, organising festivals and events. Her tireless work to have a regional transaction centre built in Coraki resulted in providing access to many government services and countless people. She received lifetime membership for service with Meals on Wheels. For every group she worked with, she gave each and every one 110%. So I just want to let people know I think it's worthwhile remembering those who've come before us. Any other matters? I'll put that motion then. All those in favour? Carried. Delegates report, nil. Item 11, items that will be called without debate. I'm going to jump in early and call 16.1. Has any other councillors got any other items?
14.2, Mr Mayor.
Just a minute, 14.2.
14.1, 14.3.
Any other councillors? So, Mr General Manager, I believe we need a motion for 15.1, 15.2, 15.3, 16.2. Correct?
Correct.
Can I get someone to move those, please?
Move, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Morrissey. And a seconder?
Second.
Councillor Humphries. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried. General Manager reports, there's nil. Officer General Manager nil. We'll go over the page to 14.1 and Councillor Hayes.
I'd just like to endorse the recommendation as written.
So you'll move that?
Yep.
Yes, and I can get a seconder, please.
I'll second that.
Councillor Murray. Councillor Hayes.
As you probably realise, I was a member of the Flood Risk Management Committee, and the online sessions we had were very informative and well run. And the girl from BMT, Mel, she was great. We had the right people there. We were given information all the way along, kept in the loop, and so on. I just thought I'd just give you my thoughts on where we stand with it at the moment. The three items that stand out, that was broken up into with the flood modification options, the property modification options and the response modification options. To me, clearly, it's in three parts, and I think the modification options, hopefully they're covered because they, by the CSIRO report when it comes out, which I think is due in June, is that correct? Yep. Hopefully they move into a bigger arena and they can be dealt with, across a broader spectrum than what we could have done in there. If you read the report, and most of you would have, it actually goes through on the table on page 12, and it breaks it down for you. And look, with the flood modification options, the only one that's requires any further investigation is the Coraki levy. And that's going to be ongoing. All the other modification issues that were brought up are either environmentally impossible, too expensive, and outside the realms of what we can do as a council. But when you get into the other options with the what do they call them, the property modification options, we've got the RA working on that at the moment, so no doubt we can follow that through a bit later down the track and make sure that they keep progressing. And then you've got your response modifications options, which to me a lot of it's just common sense with warnings and stuff that come into play. But a couple of the bigger things to come out of it for me personally are the flood habitable floor levels have remained as is, which is good for future development in the lower river areas, which, I'm pretty passionate about that area, and I think that was a good outcome. The existing flood levels, the flood hazards, the 6 flood hazards, which are now graded from a H1 to a H6, have been expanded to 9 categories, and that gives us more scope across different areas of the council area for different types of development. The only drawback I can see is we're going out to, as the recommendation says, it's going to and be endorsed and go out to public consultation. I think it's very hard for the public to read what's in that report. I think it needs simplifying a lot. I'd like to see those 9 categories actually summarised, so you know what you can do in those under those different categorisations. You know, probably in more, what do you call, like simpler terms, because even myself sitting on that committee, you know, you've got to double think yourself and go back but the guys and the girls that are in there that talk this stuff all the time, they know what's going on and they're good at it, but to keep up with them is hard work. You actually had to do a bit of reading, a bit of research. So, you know, I think the public need a little bit more to be able to grab hold of. Otherwise, they're just going to say, "Oh, what's that?" Yeah, we won't get the feedback that we're looking for. So, other than that, thank you.
Councillor Murray as seconder.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I echo the words of Councillor Hayes. I found this item particularly challenging to understand, and I think it's really important that we improve the readability for everyday people to interpret the information. I just have 2 questions. In the structuring of the model behind this, was the Climate Change Net Zero Future Act 2023 for New South Wales, the sea level allowance of 0.9 metres. I just wanted to know if that's been benchmarked against any current New South Wales government projections, and to confirm that's still best practice.
Mr General Manager, who could we answer that?
I'll let Director respond to that one. Director Kaya, thank you.
Through you, Mr Mayor, Councillor Murray, this piece of work did undertake thorough consideration of all of the flood planning manuals as well as various national and New South Wales standards. So the answer to your question essentially is that yes, it would have taken that into consideration given the BMT does this on their daily basis, and that we were assured that all most recent, particularly the most recent New South Wales Government coastal inundation maps that were released in January is incorporated.
Amazing, thank you very much. And the second question is just, was the new highway being incorporated into the modelling, including its potential impact on flood behaviour and water levels across the region as part of this study?
Same.
May I clarify through Mr Mayor that which highway you're referring to? You're talking about our Pacific
The new
Highway?
Pacific Highway, correct.
Yeah, M1.
Yeah. So yes, in the earlier parts of this work, so in the beginning phases, there were discussions as to which infrastructures were most important in the consideration. In the later phases, probably less so, partly because this piece of work essentially looked at local impact, and Pacific Highway being a classified road and a major highway was then not necessarily looked into absolute detail. I'm not quite sure what the intent of your question was.
Oh, there was commentary at the time that the highway acted like a dam wall, and there was commentary from many cane farmers, the Cane Farmers Association as well, at the time when there was public consultation on that highway, that it should be raised so the floodwater could actually make it out to the ocean faster and potentially have that could people the local commentary is that, yeah, the highway acted like a dam wall, and there was a lot of concern around it at the time. So it surprises me that it was only considered in the early part of the modelling, and I've seen, you know, the model, you can kind of see what different areas have impacted that flood, but there's nothing around the highway. I just find that really unusual, and I guess that, yeah, questions coming from the community.
Well, I think we need to be, the highway is absolutely included in the flood modelling. So that highway is part of the flood modelling, and I suppose this is more about assessing. So this is why it focuses on assessing the risk of what the outcomes of the flood study show. Obviously, yeah. So I don't know whether you wanted to add to that, Dana.
So for me, that was one that we can also check on, because part of this piece of work, when we go out to exhibition and subsequent mapping, we will be able to zoom in and see how it's being reflected in various iterations of the model and the most recent one that we'll exhibit. So that's something we could also take on notice and have a look into.
I think that would be great.
And yeah, look, and it's just a reminder, I attended a meeting in Woodburn, it's a few months ago, might have been late last year actually, which Transport for New South Wales actually came back to the Woodburn community about that very question about the motorway, so we can check in with the Transport New South Wales senior officers who attended that meeting, because it was a commitment they'd made a couple of years ago. So that's just come to mind, so we can check in with them, because I think it's important when we put this out, the highway and whether it did or didn't impact will be an issue that people will raise. So it's important that we have a clear understanding of that. So we'll make sure we've got that, and we can include that in any comms where we see that's necessary. So thanks for raising that.
Did that answer your question?
It does, thank you.
Thank you. Any other councillors?
If I could just make a comment, it definitely was raised in the early stages. I think Councillor Hayes, you've always really pushed wanting clarification for that as well. And that's why it's going to be really important to have the team, representatives of the team from BMT at these sessions with the community. The result of the plan was 2 volumes. It was 2 huge volumes, and saying, like, it was tough work. I waded through as much as I could, more of 1 than 2. And I was really pleased with this 6.5-page report tonight, because I actually think it's really brought all of it back to clarity, to more clarity than you can imagine with 2 volumes. And I think when it breaks it down to the flood mitigation options and the property modification and response options there, they've been described, and I think a lot of the community will be very interested, and they will understand that being broken down like that. An enormous amount of years and knowledge and experience and sharp minds and the latest technology, a great energy and a lot of heart and soul went into this plan over those months. And I'm very much looking forward to the community taking advantage of that, the 30 days or the minimum of 30 days public exhibition, and asking all those questions that have affect their lives and what their thinking is. So I'm really hoping that will happen. And as I said, I think that this basic report will inspire the community to ask those questions. Of course, there'll be community people who are wanting to know more about the land uses. Like, that's just, will we ever be able to sort that out, the different land uses the different communities that rely on different parts of the land, and will we be able to make it clear to some of the community that if this happens, this option that they think will fix everything and be the best mitigation, if we do that, like the Corokai levy, it might be great for one area, but it's going to be a lot worse, make it a lot worse for other areas. So it was really, really challenging. I think another important that Councillor Hayes also said is the new approach, that they're going to have that flood planning constraints categorisation instead of the floodplain hazard categories. I think a lot of the community will be interested to know more about that. There's all the recommendations. I really hope that we can get feedback and we can get a green light from our community to move on with all those yeses. Like, I think there's a lot of basic must do. We've got to just keep the momentum going and do everything we possibly can to those, might I say, softer options that have a yes next to them. So I look forward to hearing back from public exhibition.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Hayes, write a reply.
Yeah, Councillor Humphries talked about the softer options, and I think we're seated really well, positioned really well to move forward with them. I think we've got to wait for the CSIRO report for the what I call mitigation measures, because some of them there topped others and were a lot better. It seemed the better ones have a lot more environmental constraints and a lot more expensive and way above what this council can do. So if the CSIRO report comes out and there's mitigation measures that will assist us in lowering the flood levels down there, I think we've got to support them. But like I said, there's all those environmental constraints, the money, the property buybacks that are required for some of the options. You know, it's a huge job, Yeah, and I think the result we get out of the bottom 2/3 of this will be, you know, something that we can operate on, and as a council, we can actually put them in place. So I think that the report and the exercise was well and truly worth it. I learned a lot, and yeah, move forward from here, and hopefully they keep getting put into action. So thank you.
Thank you. That closes the debate. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Unanimous. We now go to page 17, 14.2. Councillor Morrissey.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'll just move the recommendation. It's a planning matter.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, Councillor Hay. Councillor Morrissey.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor, I'll just move the recommendation, just being a planning matter.
Thank you. And I can get a seconder?
I'll second that.
Councillor Murray. Don't want to speak to it? Any other speakers? Councillor Murray is a seconder? No? Right, a reply?
Mr Mayor.
I'll put that motion in. All those in favour? Carried. We're on page 20, item 14.3, Councillor Hayes.
Once again, I just want to move that recommendation as presented.
And a seconder?
Second.
Councillor Hayes.
I've just got a few questions if I can run them by. There was in the table in there. There's 3 items there that I'd like just a little bit of clarification on. One of them is you're pulling artificial turf out of the hard stand landscaping areas. I'm just wondering why that is it's across that document in 2 or 3 different places that it's going to happen. I'm just wondering why.
Mr General Manager, question?
Director Kaya.
I can probably expand on that a little bit. It actually says in there that because the water infiltration of the turf is not sufficient enough, but it doesn't exist, and in reality it does. So I'm just wondering why that excuse has been given.
Through you, Mr Mayor. So artificial turf has across industry and across most DCPs being identified as impermeable surface. I understand that there is still probably some level of permeability, particularly over time as it breaks down, but in essence it is a plastic turf, and we cannot decipher as to the underlays of how it's constructed, and perhaps with time we can seek to adjust that as the artificial turf industry changes, but at this point in time, to align with expectations of what the product actually is to include it as a impermeable surface.
When you research the turf itself, it says it has a 60 litre per minute infiltration ability.
We're not here to,
Yeah, I know, but I'm
Mr.
just
We're not here
wondering
to
why-
actually
why the-
decipher what people are putting ultimately, and that's the tricky part is unless if, there's a new standard in the industry, I believe that, there are good products out there, and there are products that are...
Yeah, no good, exactly, yeah. So, okay, that's the first one. The other one is on A6 1.8 in that table, which is... minus to wall height. I don't understand what that means. A6 1.8, it says add minors to a maximum wall height 2 metres.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. From my memory, having read through all of those amendments, this one was really, and without having to pull it up again, I did review that, and it did make sense once you looked at the actual controls. It did, can't talk to you the specifics, but if you go, as part of public exhibition, we can also confirm that that is correct. But my first reading through that, it did make sense when you confer it with the actual DCP provision itself.
And just one more, there's only 3. To clarify private open space and landscape open space, you know, there's lots of commentary across that document about 30% landscape open space, then your artificial turf detracts from that 30%, and so on. Every time we get a development control plan update, the landscaping areas are detracted from. They keep pulling things out that you can't use. Like years ago, back in DCP 15, swimming pools were classified as a landscaped area, and now they're not. So you can't. It's nearly impossible to have a swimming pool 40-year building lot in your front yard because of that. And now we've pulled the turf out. You know, it just adds up. And if we're moving towards high density living, which we probably will have to in Evans Head, all these things are going to add up to making it very hard. I know they're only minor changes, but and look, probably my next question is, at what point is the DCP going to be basically updated and renewed? You know, when all these are only minor adjustments, as you say, but they all lead to, when do we get to the time when we can actually get in and get the thing sorted out?
Do we have a plan for time frame on that?
We do.
Yep.
Yeah. So through you, Mr. Mayor, just briefly on that landscape provision, some of it is reflecting requirements that to align with Code SEP, my understanding. But in terms of the more major DCP updates, we are looking at needing to do one in the next 12 to 18 months, subsequent to this flood study, as well as the CBD master plan, of which we will need to reflect that in our LEP and DCP, the findings and the results of those pieces of major work.
So where you mention the code SEP, are we required to be consistent with the code SEP with our DCP? Is that a requirement?
Typically, a DCP doesn't have to restate what is in a code SEP. However, sometimes for clarity for our community, rather than them having to navigate various documents, and for the ones that often reoccur in the questions that we get from the community, we tend to, where it is relevant, to state that in here, or try and reflect and update our controls to somewhat be more aligned. So some of those nuances may, just have to be absorbed in that way to make it easy for our community.
I'll just make one more comment. In Part I, it's always stated that you can have 10% landscaping, and it's an argument when you can't fit 30% in, but now you've wiped that out too. So yeah, it's going to lead to issues when we get to higher density development. I think it needs working, and when we get to the development control plan, revamp, that's when it needs dealing with.
Might be something that we can pull out and emphasise in the public exhibition period, and seek views from those in the industry and others to see what their views are. It can be a factor that affects how you do a development, so it is an important one for us to consider.
And if I may, Mr. Mayor, when we do have more dense development, we may choose to have a separate set of controls that talk to those.
Probably just, I'll close a bit later, but all these minor adjustments can lead to a lot of other adjustments to be able to fit it in, if you know what I mean. So you've got to be careful.
Councillor Humphries, as seconder.
No, thank you.
Any other speakers? Councillor Murray.
Yeah, I've just got a couple of questions. Just referencing, 2 seconds. The review was informed by frequent users of the document, it says in the report. I'm just wondering, who were these users? Was it a mixture of developers and consultants and residents? What was the makeup of that consultation?
Mr. General Manager.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Murray, the frequent users comprise of staff member across the organisation, from engineering to certification to planning, so that's one group. We also accounted for the type of discussions that has come through with applicants or developers or landowners. And then there's the third group, which is general inquiries through our concierge that we get received.
Thank you for that. So this is an area well outside of my expertise, so just so I fully understand what I'm endorsing tonight, can someone explain to me how this impacts existing DAs? Are there any DAs that are open that these changes are going to impact, and do we know of the list of DAs open of which will be impacted, I guess?
Director.
Mr. Mayor, through you. So with any changes like this, there is always a time at which we can either put in a transitional provision, which we haven't technically in this instance because this will only commence once it is adopted. So any application received after this adoption is to meet the new adjustments. They are only, they're not major, but they do need to heed it. Anything before will be assessed on the current existing DCP.
Thank you for that explanation. And I just have a question on the link back to the community strategic plan. It says 1B1.1, prepare housing strategies is what we're linking it back to, but these seem to be largely around the regional jobs precinct implementation and not housing strategy directly. So just wondering how that's linked, I guess, from a strategic level.
Oh, look, I think it captures, that 1B1.1 as, with a plan at the level of a community strategic plan has a broader, so it talks about housing strategies, it also talks about planning controls, it's obviously connecting it to our Richmond Valley Growth Management Strategy, which is a Richmond Valley-wide document, so in this instance it's capturing the update planning controls, so that's the connection to our plans that this matter relates.
Thank you.
Any other speakers or questions? Councillor Hayes, right to reply.
Yeah, look, just to close, one of the other things that you've got in there is carports forward of the front building line setback with the adjoining to the roof of the house, as you can do it now, whereas before you couldn't. This is one of the items that lead to other items that need adjusting to suit it, to fit it in, because otherwise it's not going to happen. It's going to be impossible to do it on the ground. So the suggested administration amendment to allow carports to tie into existing roof lines to gain a more aesthetically pleasing streetscape, it's a good amendment, but won't work unless the overall height restriction, which sits at 3.3 metres, is removed. And if you want to, I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of that, but at what time do you sit down and go through all this stuff and just see what happens down the line? Because it also affects, the type of carport you can build. It just by letting you tie into the roof, it doesn't work. You've got to change other things to be able to do that. So if you get a standard house, which there's thousands of them around our council area that have got 2.4 metre high ceilings, and you've got a 3.3 metre high on your limit on your overall height of your carport, by the time you go up the roof at 20 degrees and step down in your garage and come out the front and the ground falls at the front, you're well and truly over 3.3 metres. So they ain't going to happen, unless you apply for variation. And it goes on, it goes on and on and on. Then you get the 6 metre width of a normal driveway, 6 metre width of a carport, and then you've got your across the front of your block, you can only do 33% or 6 metres, whichever's the lesser. It just doesn't work. You'll end up with a carport that can't go up the roof high enough, so it's restricted in its width, and then you'll have a post in the middle of a 6 metre driveway, which will be able to be approved under those changes. So it's going to create a lot of issues unless the whole thing's worked through. And I'm not saying it's it needs doing now, but eventually it's going to have to be sorted out. And just to finish my close, there's a lot of mention in the business paper tonight about the flood risk management results that are going out to public consultation. And when are they going to be included in the DCP? Is that another update, or will that be done when the DCP's up for renewal? Or there's a whole lot of stuff going on at the moment, and we're going to just keep adding that and adding, until we get to the point where we can have an updated document. And it's going to confuse a lot of people.
Through you, Mr Mayor. So you're right, there are always subsequent fix-ups to do and clean-ups. As far as the major piece of work to come, the preference generally is to do it all together if we can. So the flood would accompany other major updates. At times we do split it up if we think that it's too much to absorb, or that it can be siphoned off into its own piece of work. So that's something we'll decipher, but ideally it could come all together so that we can do that thorough review that incorporates kind of a rethink about how do we apply all of the controls to a typical site or a typical standard lot dimension that happens in different zones, and then kind of work out whether or not that's still realistic. Often that then is a separate piece of urban design work that our team will have to reach out for some expertise on to be able to, you know, put to the test how that looks in standard sites.
Close the debate. I'll put that motion to 14.3. All those, recommendation, all those in favour? Carried. (16.1), page 33, Organisation Services Water Pricing Review Update. There's a motion on page, a recommendation on page 34. Councillors, I will move 1, 2 and 3, and I'm going to change 4 and 5. So 4 will read, endorses discussions with the Casino Food Company Limited to increase water supply charges to scenario 2 for the 26-27 as outlined in the report. Just wait for that to be updated. Number 5 will be the General Manager completes an assessment to determine the long-run marginal cost pricing framework in line with the regulatory best practice and report the findings and recommendations back to Council by March 2027 to inform water pricing decisions for the 27-28 financial year. think it'll be right, Janet. Good. Got it all up? Thank you. Councillors, I'll move that, and if I can get a seconder, please.
Second.
Councillor Humphries. Councillor, this is a very important issue for water pricing for our whole community. It needs to be addressed, as currently it does not meet regulatory guidelines and financial best practice. I have chosen scenario 2 because I believe there has to be an increase, and it's a 33% rise. There are other options there that are lower and higher, but I think we need to start getting up the Casino Food Company Limited up to a standard where it's acceptable, and it's costing us $1.48 to produce the water, and I believe we need to get up to there and add a bit of a buffer on it, and in the previous agreement there was a 14%, so I've just stuck with that for clarity, but the second part, 5, if you go to the attachments, you will see on page 38 and 39, out of that review, there are findings and recommendations, and part 5 of that, of the recommendation, covers off on those, and I believe we get these reports, and we need to follow through on their findings and on the recommendations, and there's also the references of where those findings and recommendations have come from. I'm not going to read them all. You've all got them in front of you, but I just think it's good governance and practice to start implementing those guidelines and recommendations. So I'll pass that over now to Councillor Humphries as seconder, if she'd like to comment.
Yeah, thank you very much. This has been a concern to council for many years. It's been a concern to some within our community as well. And when you see the pricing, it's clear with all the infrastructure that this council needs to put in place to safeguard water security for the whole of the Richmond Valley. I think this is really fair. I think it's important that you've included the long-run marginal costs, and we've got till 27-28 to get the regulatory best practice into place. I'm hopeful that going to, with the general manager meeting with the NCMC, the food company, that there may be some understanding that they've actually, as in the report there, dare I say, they're on a pretty good wicket. When you have a look at page 36 and you see all the benefits that they receive, and when you're looking at that connection to town water supply provides a high level of supply security during periods of drought. Industry water licences used for self-supply are subject to allocation limits, embargoes, suspension during extreme conditions, whereas town water systems are managed to maximise continuity of supply to support public health, community needs and regional economic activity. But the report contains other information like that. I think it's also very important for us to make sure that we have a lawful agreement with the company in place. So I applaud the add-on of the 4 and the 5, and I think this is a really good way for us to progress what is critical. It's critical for us to do this.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Hayes.
Yeah, look, I agree with dot point 5. Dot point 4 is still a little bit hard to swallow, but if we end up there, I can probably go with that. I come in here tonight to push for scenario 3. I'm not going to do that just yet. I'm just going to see what else comes out in the next few minutes, but I think that dot point 5 is very important. The only other thing that I think that probably needs building in somewhere, and if we can, I don't know if we legally can, is some incentive for them to save water. Okay, whether there's, like we do with, you know, with our residential, once you go over 200 kilolitres, your price goes up. I think there needs to be something in there built into that, just to make them, you know, to put them on notice that they need to save as much water to take the pressure off our water supply. You know, so look, so I'll just let it develop, but that's where I'm sitting at the moment.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Walker.
Just a question, Mr Mayor, just asking why you've used the wording in point 4, which talks about endorsing discussions on scenario 2. You're effectively not discussing, you're telling them, therefore there is nowhere to go if you discuss nothing but scenario 2. Therefore the question is why your recommendation doesn't say we adopt scenario 2.
Well, we will adopt it if we say to increase the water supply to scenario 2, but we still have to have discussions, not negotiations, but discussions.
I just don't think the wording reflects that. It says you're going into discussions and you're only going to do scenario 2. If you want scenario 2, you should move scenario 2 or scenario 3, whatever you believe in. But who goes in to discuss what? What are you going to discuss when you're saying...
We'll be telling them...
You're telling them, that's right. So
Yeah.
It's not a discussion. I just think it'd be better worded if it was a specific recommendation, that's all.
Well, we are discussing why it's going to be scenario 2. So, but if we want to change it to adopt scenario 2 and have discussions with their casino food company, that's fine. But I think the main point is that we get scenario 2, which will be adopted in the recommendation. But I'll get some advice off that from Mr. General Manager.
My only, a comment on that would be that the council doesn't have to adopt whatever the charge you decide until the May meeting, when the draft revenue policy is considered to then go out for public consultation. So you have a month where you can have have a discussion. Obviously, any change is an impact on that business, and it gives them an opportunity to provide us with any reasons why they feel that might be, and that can be brought back and included in a response in a report when the draft revenue policy goes up in May. So I sort of take both points. You can adopt it tonight, but ultimately the charge that you adopt is at the May meeting in the draft revenue policy that then goes out to the formal consultation process through May and June before that comes back for final adoption, of which, subject to that consultation, you can also, or is your option obviously for any charge to be adjusted before that final meeting on 30 June.
Thank you. Councillor Murray.
I'd like to move an amendment.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I've sent the amendment to Julie. Do you want to put that on the screen ahead of me? It's a long one. Yes, please. My formatting, it seems, is not That should just be a number 5.
Councillor Murray, would you like to read that out while we're getting it up on the screen, please?
Yes, Mr Mayor, thank you. Okay, so the amendment says that council notes the findings of the independent review by Hydrology and Risk Consulting Proprietary Limited, HARC, dated the 2nd of April 2026, version 3, including A, the confirmed cost of supply to Casino Food Company of $1.48 per kilolitre in 2004-25 compared to the current charge rate of $1.27 per kilolitre. The resulting financial loss to council of approximately $355,000 for the 24-25 financial year. The absence of a long-run marginal cost LRMC model and a compliant cost recovery framework. 2, acknowledges that the current pricing methodology does not align with the best practice regulatory pricing principles or the requirements of the Local Government Act 1993 and creates ongoing financial risk to the water fund. 3, resolves to adopt scenario 4 as the basis for negotiation, applying the full non-residential water charge, currently $3.65 per kilolitre, subject to a structured transition arrangement of no more than 24 months from the date of any executed agreement, with the destination rate of $3.65. Number 4, directs the General Manager to commence formal negotiations with the Casino Food Company under a defined framework, including clear parameters, milestones and reporting obligations to Council. Provide a report to the August 26 ordinary meeting outlining a proposed compliant pricing model incorporating LRMC and cost recovery principles, transitioning pricing options and associated economic impacts. A written record confirming the Casino Food Company Limited has been formally notified of Council's resolved negotiating position. C, ensure that any revised water supply agreement includes binding obligations on the Casino Food Company Limited to implement a water efficiency and conservation program, including the installation of sub-metering and real-time consumption monitoring at the company's expense within 12 months of the agreement execution. Preparation and submission to Council of an annual water efficiency plan identifying measurable reduction targets and capital investment in water-saving infrastructure. Agreed consumption reduction benchmarks over the life of the agreement with pricing incentives for performance above benchmark and financial penalties for material underperformance. A requirement that the CFC's water efficiency performance be reported publicly as part of Council's annual revenue policy disclosure alongside any applicable CSOs. Requires that the level of any subsidy to the CFC be transparently disclosed in Council's revenue policy as a community service obligation.
Thank you. I'll just make sure it's up on the screen. Good. Can I ever get a seconder for the amendment, please?
Can I ask a question of councillor Murray
Yes.
prior to seconding?
Yes?
Would you be willing to change one number in there? Scenario 4 back to scenario 3? I think 187% increase is a little bit hard to swallow, but 44% maybe. And that's what I... Yeah, okay, thank you.
Sorry?
I just reminded you, it was a question, not a statement. Sorry.
Councillor Murray, you've asked a question.
Yeah, I'll accept councillor Hayes's suggestion.
Right, second.
Okay. So we'll just wait for that to be changed. Hmm?
It says resolves to adopt scenario 3 as the basis for negotiation. Yes.
What's the rate on the scenario? So is that then seconded?
Yes, by councillor Hayes. We'll just wait for it to be changed. We good? Okay. Councillor Murray, would you like to speak to your amendment, please?
Can I start with a question? Do we know what the total cumulative loss is to council over the lifetime of the agreement?
Mr. General Manager.
Short answer, no. Not an information we have to hand. It is something that we would be able to work out, but no, don't have it available, sorry.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the fact that this has cost ratepayers $355,000 in the 24-25 financial year is a great concern to many community members that I've spoken to. The Casino Food Company is a significant employer, and I think we all genuinely value its contribution to this community, and no one in this chamber, I don't think, would dispute that. But tonight, I think we really need to be honest about something that's gone unexamined for a really long period of time. The entity we are discussing is no longer a cooperative. I think that's important to distinguish. It's the Casino Food Company Limited, a private company, and as a company, it's entitled to be treated exactly as we treat every other business in the LGA, and I don't think any better or any worse. So the question that I sit with is, as a group of local, if a group of local business owners, the cafe owners, manufacturers, and anyone running a water-intensive operation in the Richmond Valley came to the chamber tomorrow and asked for the same deal, will we give it to them? And I don't think the answer is yes. We can't afford to, put simply. And I don't think that's fair. If it's not equitable, and I think it's questionable under the competitive neutrality principles of the Local Government Act. As I said before, if any other business came to us, industry size or proximity to the water supply with all the same variables, and I think the question really is, would we offer this same deal to another company? I think that's important to consider. Every ratepayer in this valley has been quietly subsidising the arrangements to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars every year. The water fund belongs to the whole community. Every household, every farmer, every small business owner paying their full rate without paying their full rate. Something that speaks directly to who we are as a community. Australia is the driest inhabited continent on Earth. We are a region that's lived through the catastrophic 2022 floods. We know what it looks like when water doesn't act as it wants. When water acts as it wants to. The Bureau of Meteorology's own data shows that Southern Australia has recorded below average cool season rainfall in 2026. Of the last 32 years. And globally, the World Bank found last year that the world is losing enough fresh water annually to supply 280 million people. So water security is a key issue of concern for the community members I've spoken to as well. So then when you're asking one of the largest water users to measure what they use, set some targets, report publicly on their progress shouldn't be a burden. And if the Casino Food Company is the community partner that it says it is, this shouldn't be a difficult ask for them. This amendment doesn't punish the Casino Food Company, it just asks them to pay their fair share, like everybody else, with 2 generous years to get there. And in my view, that's just creating a fair and equitable playing field for all.
Thank you, Councillor Hayes.
I just might ask a question of the General Manager. Are you able to work with that recommendation? With that amendment, sorry? Is there anything in there that's outside the legal framework of what you can do, that you can see?
There is. Chief of Staff just pointed out to me, so it's a timely question from you. If you go, basically it's talking about a water supply agreement. And so any agreement needs to be within the term of this council's decision making. And that's obviously an outcome of what when we looked at the existing agreement, and that a charge under the Local Government Act you're not able to set it for a period of time that then fetters the decision making of a future council. So you could potentially set a price path for the term of this council, so through until
September 20.
You'd be able to set the rate for 29. So that may need to, because it says there just looking at the direction of the General Manager too, and then item 3 says revised water supply agreement. That agreement would need to be for within this term of council.
do we have to have an agreement with the Meatworks in place if we're going to adjust CPI every 12 months? And if it's a line item on our revenue policy, why do we have to have a contract? We don't have a contract with any other line items on our revenue policy. Why the Meatworks? Why the food company?
Look, we don't have to, but obviously they are a big supplier, and having agreements obviously provides some certainty to your business. They're using up to close to 50% of our water supply. So the answer is you don't have to. But when you're running a business, there's obviously advantages in having contractual arrangements and agreements that give you certainty for a period of time. But obviously we need to make sure that fits with the Act and those requirements. So that's another factor you need to consider.
Look, I come in here tonight thinking that scenario 3 is where I wanted to head, and thanks to Councillor Murray, she's put it up there. The evidence base out of that report doesn't give you a lot to go on as to why scenario 3 or scenario 4 is workable. I think there's a bit of evidence there for scenario 2 to be workable, but that's not part of this this amendment. So I've supported the amendment to get it on the floor just for the discussion, and we'll just see what comes out of it until we get to a vote. So, and I said that on the original notice to the original recommendation. So,
Thank you. Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I came to the meeting tonight happy to accept the recommendation that was put forward and the report that had been presented. I thought it was reasonable. I concur there needs to be a movement in the price. But this amendment that's put forward is an absolutely great recommendation if you want to get rid of a customer. If you want to get rid of the food cooperative entirely, charge them what you're proposing to charge them. If you apply the money that we're going to ask them under these scenarios, they would be much better as a business, and I know I certainly would, is to go out and borrow $30 million of my own money and get my own water supply, and that's something they've looked at in the past. So if you want to get rid of a customer, terrific recommendation. If you do that, you would need to have a look at what it does to the cost to every other water user in this local government area. And I'd love to see the model. You take out the water consumption, that half of our production and the consumption from the meatworks, and apply the cost of running our water system against half the usage. The price for everyone else will go up. And I'd really like to see a model of what would happen if they did walk away from it, because it shouldn't be hard to do it. I think it's a ridiculous motion. I think it bears no resemblance to commercial reality.
Sorry, Councillor, is that a ridiculous motion or amendment?
Amendment. Apologies, Mr Mayor. I didn't mean yours.
Thank you.
Amendment.
I just wanted to get the...
You'll talk to the motion in due course, but I think it's absolutely saying to the casino food cooperative, go away, we don't want you, we're going to charge you such a high amount that you will force them to look at all the other options. Whereas scenario 2 and others around that area, there was some discussion work. I think it's fair and reasonable that we do increase it. So I just think it's an amendment which bears no resemblance to reality. I think it's telling our major employer of this community and a really important part of this community that we don't want you, and we're going to price you out of our water system, and the cost to everyone else will be unbelievably bad. So I think it should not be supported under any circumstance. I believe the amendment should be defeated and we should be discussing the motion.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Either on the motion or the amendment? I'm fine to take it.
I guess I would make comment. Earlier I spoke about, I used the paragraph on page 36, saying that what the town water supply offers and gives to the NCMC. That's really important, and if they can't get that on their own, I want them to have that because of their importance in our community and the industry and their business. So I don't want to say goodbye and off you go as well. So I'm sticking with, I'm supporting the motion. I think that's going to give us some leverage, and I can see that this report, surely they can read this and understand what council needs to do for its community and for them. So I'm sticking with the motion as well.
Councillor Hayes, look, I'm happy to open this up to a bit more, because Councillor, did you say you want to talk to the motion later? So you can, whenever you, because I can't put the amendment because then it becomes the motion. So, Councillor Hayes first.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure whether I could speak on it or not, but we've got to keep in the back of our mind, and Councillor Murray said it in her address there a while ago, if another business comes along and wants the same deal, they're going to employ 1,000 people, they're going to do exactly the same as what they're saying, are we going to be able to accommodate them at the rates that we're charging? We won't have the water supply to start with, so we're going to have to find the water supply, and we're not going to be able to accommodate them anyway. So, like Councillor Walker says, yeah, we're going to chase them away. Look, I don't disagree with him at some of those prices. Of course, you're going to pack your bags and run, but we've got to look at the other scenario. If we get another big business that comes in here, you know, we're promoting business, we're building these industrial subdivisions, it could happen, and then we're going to have a problem on our hands. So I think we need to balance it out. And look, I don't disagree with what Councillor Humphrey said. I think the original motion is, is there as a starting point, and we can build on it over the years. I'd be interested to get a little bit more information on why we need a contract with them. You know, if it's a line item in our revenue policy, it's there, and then we can change it whenever we like, or update it, or reduce it even. Well, otherwise we're cutting off, and to leave it sit over a council term, we can't do that anyway. We've only got 2 and a bit years to go, so a line item in there for the next 2 years might be the answer.
Councillor Walker, did you want to speak on the motion?
Mr Mayor, I was happy with the recommendation, the original recommendation put forward by the staff, but I understand your motion, and I in fact personally agree that scenario 2 is where it ought to be. So my objection to the motion was just the wording thereof, that I believe you go into a negotiation slightly different. But if it comes to supporting the motion or the amendment, I already argued I think the amendment is reckless. I would support your motion, Mr Mayor, because I think that is the right increase. There's no doubt it needs to go up. And what's in place, it took place 14 years ago. We all, we don't all remember, but those of us who are here remember why it happened, and the problems were there. It's time to be changed. They do need to contribute more. Their structure has changed. They're not a cooperative. I understand all of that. And I think what's proposed in scenario 2 is probably fair and reasonable, and a good starting point to get the conversation going. So I support your motion, Mr Mayor, albeit that I play around with a few of the words. So you have my support on that.
Thank you. Any other speakers? No, I'm going to close then. Councillors.
Do I get to say something at the end?
You don't get a right to reply on an amendment, the mover of the motion does. So I'm going to close, councillors. Councillors, I just have trouble with scenario 3 because it's going to be a 44% increase, which there's a 14% profit margin in scenario 2, so that's going to be a bigger profit margin. Where do we get to be able to quantify that? At least the 14% was in the previous agreement, and I just think it's a little bit too much too soon. But in saying that, we can't continue to produce water for $1.48 and charge $1.19. And no business can do that, and council certainly can't do it. And what we've got to remember was what Councillor Murray said. There's other sections of our community are subsidising a business and have been doing it for a long time. So the time has come where we have to address it. And I believe what I said earlier about this with the scenario 3, I believe once we get this study done in part 5 over the next 12 months, the recommendation will lead to providing clear recommendations to ensure pricing is fair, evidence-based, transparent, and able to stand withstand public and regulatory scrutiny into the future. And I don't believe the amendment can do that. So I'll be supporting my motion. So, councillors, I'm going to put the amendment. All those in favour of the amendment? Against? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried? Against? Thank you for the debate. I really appreciate it, and it's a hard issue, but I'm pleased with the way it went. Thank you. Councillors, we now go to page 44. Item 17, matters for information. Can I get a mover, please?
Moved, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Morrissey, and a seconder.
Second.
Councillor Humphries. Has any councillor got any items on items 17 they'd like to discuss or have a question on?
Just a question, Mr Mayor.
Yes.
On 17.2. Grant applications submitted.
Yes.
Her Way, connecting Casino CBD with Queen Elizabeth Park. And the comment is, if successful, this funding will be used to design and deliver an infrastructure program to improve the safety of women and gender diverse people in Casino CBD and in navigation to Queen Elizabeth Park. Could I have a bit of an explanation or a bit more information on that, please?
The General Manager.
I'll let Director Zola respond. Thank you.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Councillor Morrissey, that one is a grant opportunity that came up that we identified that we feel would tie in really well with the suspension bridge project. So what we want to do there is improve lighting, CCTV for that area. What we found is that at the moment it's restrictive for a lot of people to walk from the CBD over to South Casino via that way because of how dark it gets, and it's only a small passage on the footbridge. I'm not aware of the exact detail of that scope, but I do know that it's lighting, CCTV, signage, things like that to improve safety for that traverse across there.
Thank you, Director Zola.
Any other questions? I'll put that motion in. All those in favour? Carried. Item 18 on page 70, there's no questions on notice. No?
Yes, I've put someone through to Julie.
Do you know of any, Mr General Manager, have any been received?
Were they sent through today?
Yes, for
Yeah,
next
so
meeting.
we'll take those and they move forward to the next meeting. So thank you. No, we just take them and they're on notice for the next meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillors, page 71, I need a motion to go into closed council.
Move, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Morrissey.
Yeah, second.
Councillor Hayes. Mr General Manager, has there been any written representations? Thank you. Have a safe trip home. Apparently there's not, and there's none from the government. Mr. General Manager, could you read the, oh, hang on, we open? Could you read the resolutions of closed council, please?
Yeah, I'll let Director Gator read that one for his report. Thanks.
Director Gator.
In matters 1.1, tender VP 490321, heavy rigid truck mobile library. Council resolved that 1, declines all tenders for tender VP 490321, heavy rigid truck mobile library, due to all tender submissions being either outside of the budget, non-compliant or unable to meet council's requirements. Number 2, applies clause 1783E of the Local Government General Regulations 2021 to authorise the General Manager to enter into direct negotiations with any suitably qualified contractors with a view to procure works that provide council with the best outcome, both from a financial and delivery perspective, and to finalise terms of the contract or agreement and affixing the seal of council where necessary. And number 3, notes that the outcome of the negotiations will be reported to council for information at a future meeting.
Thank you, Director. That brings our meeting to an end. I'll close the meeting and wish everyone a safe trip home and enjoyable Anzac weekend. Thank you.